Hello, hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi, welcome everybody to this week's Food for the Chakras.
Hello. Hi.
We got a feedback. Okay. So thank you, Ariel, for joining me. And I'm so excited, Mary, to meet you in person on screen. Thank you every episode for your wonderful comments and insights. So it's really wonderful to have you here so that we can discuss this live.
Yay. So good to see you, Doreen, Benita.
I know, it's been interesting going through these chakras and trying to use color therapy to dress, to clear, and realizing that my closet is full of a lot of black and white. I am, I was very happy to find this old shirt of mine. It's like probably 15 years old and it's full of snakes, which I love. And the only other green outfit that I have was a beautiful dress full of octopus tentacles. Ooh. So I have to say, I enjoy my choices of green for the few that I have.
Yeah, indeed.
So thank you everybody for joining us. Hi, Danielle. It's so nice to see you. Thanks for being here. We're going to be looking at, or, talking about the heart chakra, the Anahata chakra, and we're going to be making a dessert. I'm not really that much of a dessert maker because I feel like, I try to control my blood sugar. But one of the reasons that I like to make my own desserts because I can control the amount of sugar that goes in. And we can use a lot of whole foods like dates, that I have here to reduce sugar and also increase, the glycemic index so that we can process it better within our system. And also because there's a lot of sugar substitutes. And it's amazing how you can fake your body out in terms of thinking that it's eating something sweet when it's really not. So the other reason I wanted to do a dessert is because, as you can see from the screen and because of what I'm wearing, the heart chakra is associated with green, right? We think of, and I think that when we think of the heart, we think of rose, we think of pink, we think of red.
I'm wearing pink.
Yes, I see it. And yeah, and it's, it's the symbol of love. And, that's where we come from, this place of the heart. But it's important to remember that this chakra, the Anahata chakra, is not just the heart. It's actually this entire region of the chest. So we're talking about our airways, our lungs, our hands, our arms. And I have this picture, which is the trees and our lungs. And, this is where I think the color green is represented, at least in my mind. This is where the color green comes from, because our lungs are representative of the way the trees are functioning. And there is, the alveoli, which are, looking in the, when you look at your lungs, you've got all these little air sacs. And it's like our lungs are these branches with these little alveoli, these little air sacs. And the trees have the branches with their green leaves. And it's the green leaves through which they breathe. And we can pull up that picture. And you can, this is what we're going to make, which is wonderful. And we'll get to that in a second. But this is where I think the color green is being represented, is because it's the leaves of the trees. And so when we think about it that way, we can understand where the green comes from. So I think that the rose and the pink and, all of these colors are also appropriate, but it's not a problem. And we'll get the picture up. Don't worry. It can show up whenever it wants to. But we're going to, there it is. So you can see like nature always mimics our body, or our body always mimics nature, right? Anything that we want to understand within our body, we can look at the outside world. And I think that this is where we're coming to in this time period right now. We're finally in our global awakening. We're finally in understanding that we have been isolating ourselves from nature, pulling back, really, truly not being connected. And by not being connected, we're not recognizing the patterns that exist. And they're there. Everything that we need to know, we can learn from observing nature. And so, we breathe in oxygen that's produced by the plants breathe in the CO2 that we're expelling. And here we've got an exact mirror representation of the tree branches and our lungs. And so the Anahata chakra, when we think about it, this entire chest region, it's ruled by air, because this is what we're doing. We're breathing. This is the source of life. This is our interconnection with nature. This is how we are relating with nature, is through our breath. So, when you think of the green, think about breathing, sitting tall and opening up our chest. So that is my theory on the green. I hope you appreciate it.
When I was thinking, no, it's so beautiful. Thank you for that beautiful download of information, and I really felt that.
Yeah, and I think that it's really, it's wonderful when we think about the different ways that we want to look at our chakras. If you catch Jenny Biondo and Delia Yvette's their chakra talks that are the every other Wednesday, they're talking about, a lot of the color therapy and the essential oils. Sometimes they're direct relations. Like sometimes we can understand the direct relation from one to the other. And then there are times when we look at something like the heart and we think love, we think pink, and then we see a color like green, then we maybe don't understand. And it's important to understand that, when you're looking at the chakras, not to identify with one aspect of it, but to really try to understand the vastness of it, because it's more than a color. It's more than, just the energy center of the one place that it's located. It's a vortex that's there that encompasses an entire region. So when I was thinking about what to create for this, obviously with the color green, the foods that you can imagine, green vegetables, green fruits like a kiwi, things like edamame, all the way down to the leafy greens. All of these things are good for our heart. Leafy greens are especially good for our heart. And they're really good raw. But, we have our normal salad greens that we eat. And then often we'll cook these hearty leafy vegetables like kale, Now, I don't know if you are as sick of it as I am, but, kale is everything. And, I was like, I don't want to do something with kale, enough of kale. We've had enough of kale. But then I got the download to do something with kale. So here we are. And, actually kale works so well in a dessert, because the foods that I usually cook kale with or think about kale with end up being pretty sweet. Like, I don't know if you've ever tried this, but if you take coconut milk or coconut cream and you just allow kale to marinate in that and you grill it, it's beautiful. Coconut and kale go so well together. So I thought, why not a dessert? Why not try it this way? The other thing that came to my mind was spirulina. Now, spirulina is a blue algae. It comes in a powder. This is actually a really important algae. They're looking at this for, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It's like food scarcity. And, the reason is because this is so nutrient dense. It actually is a complete protein. It's got so many B vitamins. Its iron is out of control. I mean, everything that you would want in a food is actually in spirulina. It's in blue algae. They use this on space missions to give the astronauts enough protein and enough nutrients. And, I actually have been thinking about keeping spirulina for, earthquake kits, because, this is a wonderful food to have around. The thing is, it doesn't taste so good.
Yeah.
It's pretty, it's
gotta mix it with stuff.
Yeah. It's, you mix it in a smoothie, you mix it in, all the other foods that are going to hide it. And so I thought, why not mix it into a dessert? And I found that, mixing it with almond butter is a really great way to incorporate that spirulina. And then the last thing that I was thinking about was the concept of mint, because again, we're thinking about air, this chest, the heart chakra is ruled by the element air. We've been through the fire, we've been through the water, we've been through the earth with our lower chakras. Now we're into this air. And this is, again, that concept of breath. This is the concept of space. And what helps us breathe but mint? So we're going to use a mint oil in the chocolate. Now, again, thinking about like all the different ways that we open up our heart, it's, you know, spirulina, kale, mint, all really good for our heart. Actually, they have the B vitamins, the folate, everything that we need. They've been shown in research to be really important for heart health, actually reducing cardiovascular disease, opening up blood vessels, everything that you need. So please eat your greens. Do not forget your greens. Have your diet full of as many greens as you can have. But, you know, one of the other important heart openers is one of our favorite foods, cacao, right?
Oh,
Think
yeah.
about how we use and show love. We give people chocolate. The Mayans used cacao ceremonies to really connect with one another. And this is what we have kind of re-entered to in this period of time where now we begin to see cacao ceremonies. They're all for heart opening. They're all for love. So mixing mint and chocolate and kale and spirulina and all these things, like this is going to be our heart healthy dessert. So yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I see more people have joined, and I'm really excited to have you with us. I want to start by pulling, well, I pulled the card already, but this is from the Kuan Yin Oracle. This is Alana Fairchild's deck. She has many amazing decks. Again, you know, the reason I wanted to pull from this specific oracle is Mother Mary and Kuan Yin actually have been coming to me. I think that lately I've been thinking about the goddess in time in especially in the lower chakras is like, you know, cutting through all of the cords that I need cut. You know, really Kali has been with me for my entire life, like just working through my ego, slashing it left and right. Durga has been there, Isis has been there, and they're all really powerful deities. And when I was, you know, really focused on the heart and also focused on my daughter. Today's my daughter's 7th birthday.
Yay! Happy birthday, Anaya.
And, you know, she's the one who opened up my heart. She's the one who really, for the first time, showed me what it meant to unconditionally love someone and to be unconditionally loved back.
Wow.
And, you know, when I was thinking about her and, you know, thinking about this goddess energy, I was remembering it is just as fierce as it is gentle. It is straightforward as it is compassionate and loving. And this is Kuan Yin. So the card that I pulled is Shining Lotus. And it couldn't be more appropriate because the heart chakra is actually represented by the lotus. And it's actually represented by 2 inverted triangles that form this like geometric pattern. And it's supposed to be the Shiva and Shakti union. It's also the essence of Prakriti, and that is the essence of life. That is Mother Nature. That is everything that she provides, and that resides in our heart. So pulling Shining Lotus seemed appropriate. Okay, Shining Lotus. There are times when it makes sense to be discreet until you find your inner strength so that you feel empowered enough to share your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs without wavering, even in the face of challenge by another. At other times, we benefit ourselves and others by taking a risk and allowing the inner lotus blossom of our true self to shine forth for all to behold. Have you been hiding in the spiritual closet, beloved? Sometimes it makes sense to avoid sharing your thoughts and feelings about spiritual beliefs and other personal matters until they are clear in your own mind. However, there are also times when hiding your deepest truths away from the world will no longer protect you, but actually hold you back from living your divine destiny, shining the lotus light of your own soul and walking the path in the world. This does not mean you have to make a grand announcement unless that is what is in your heart, but it does suggest that there is something within you that you could share with another or be more open in your life more generally. It might be a talk with a loved one about some significant feelings that you have kept to yourself, or you're beginning to be more open about your beliefs and your abilities. Once you put your energy into the world, you magnetically attract like-minded souls into your life, which will then encourage you to share yourself even more. Don't worry if there are those that seem to be challenged or threatened by your beliefs. They don't have to have the same beliefs as you for you or them to be safe and loved and on the spiritual path, which is unique for all of us. You and others can benefit greatly from staying true to your heart and at the same time being open to the fact that they will have their own truths that may differ to yours. And that is just the way it is. You don't have to convince others or be convinced of anything yourself. All you need to do is listen to your own heart. If there is something that you have been holding within, you are guided to listen to your heart for the right time and the best way to share it. Let the lotus light of your own heart, of your own soul, of your own inner truths shine openly, beloved. Be gentle with yourself and know that you have the right to be here on this planet in your own truth, and that no matter what the response, whether a response of affirmation and love or a response of discomfort, your truth serves the greatest good. Trust in the strength of this lotus light shining. It is more powerful than fear or doubt. It will light your way more deeply on your spiritual path of peace, purpose, and power. That is exactly what the Anahata Chakra is about.
Beautiful. Thank you. Can I show you something?
Absolutely.
Okay, so while we're in the theme of green, so this is called Uvarovite, and it is a form of garnet. It's green garnet, and it grows naturally like that. So I thought I'd bless you all with that beautiful magic right there.
Green garnet. I've never seen that before. It's gorgeous.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, the best way to open up the heart and to begin, and especially when dealing with food, is to take a deep breath into our airways, fill up our heart space, and say something that you're grateful for. And begin like that.
That sounds great. I'm so grateful for my friends.
I am extremely grateful for this time that we have to share together. I feel like it feels wonderful to be connected with everybody. Even, if I don't see your face, if I do see your face, I feel your energy. And I think this is a wonderful time to be able to learn how to expand our energetic field, even if we're not in presence of one another.
Yay.
I just was reminded, Vanita, as you were reading the card and speaking earlier, recently I have heard that spirit equals breath and breath equals spirit. And so it's so beautiful to consider that with the heart chakra and opening, and how much spirit am I able to take in my body with that breath. And yes, the collective has become so important and clear to me these past few weeks and months. So I am so grateful for friendship and for you all and for this beautiful collective that we're creating together. Thank you.
Wonderful. I love that. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us live. So let's get started. And then I want to get into that card more, because actually it had a few potent words in there that relate to that Anahata Chakra that I really want to touch on, because again, as I said, it's represented by the lotus. It couldn't have been more perfect. And I think it pulled out some key words. Again, everything is channeled, right? She channels her decks, and I feel like we're always tapped into spirit. So we're going to start actually with kale. Yay, kale.
You can't get away from the kale, Vanita.
I know. I can't get away from kale. I can't get away from it. So the first thing that we're going to do with kale is just take it off the stems. Now, all I do, this is all washed and everything. All I do is just run my hands on it, pull the stems off. You can use the stems for soup stock.
Raw bitches.
Soup stock. Or I actually feed them to my bunny too. She loves them.
Yeah.
So with the kale, it's really important to eat leafy greens and to eat as much roughage as you can in your diet. One of the things that's represented by the Anahata Chakra is raw greens, raw foods. But when you're dealing with hearty vegetables like kale, collard kale, they actually are a lot tougher for us to digest. I think you can feel the difference from kale versus a lettuce leaf or a baby spinach leaf. And so think about when you're starting to work with ingredients like that, and you want to have them in a more raw state. If you're not going to chew them for 5 minutes, which I don't think many of us chew for that long,
not bunnies.
Yeah, except for the bunny. The bunny doesn't even chew that long, but but she's got the teeth. But what you want to do is make sure that you are, breaking it down somehow. So if we're not using the enzymes of our mouth, so like a food processor is a great way. So when we're breaking it down, that's going to break open those cell walls for us. Another way is acid. So like when you get a kale salad, have you ever been to a place where they serve a kale salad and it's like raw kale and there's really nothing done to it? And you're kind of like, this is really kind of rough to eat. It doesn't feel as good. What you do is you take some lemon juice, just a little bit of lemon juice, and massage it. And literally give it a massage. Just rub it in the lemon juice and the acid will break it open. Oh. So think about that when you are eating some like hearty greens.
Okay, so I'm just curious, is it the massaging? It's the acid, not the massaging?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, massaging alone, you'll, if you're breaking it up, if you're ripping, you'll get there, but like the acid kind of helps that process.
Okay.
Chopping, all these things they'll do, but what you really want to do is like break it down as much as possible. Like if you tried to do that with baby spinach, it'd be wilted in a second, right?
Yes.
So you can see that difference in the foods. And like I said, play with your foods, use your hands, and you'll begin to feel that. You'll begin to feel what you need. Yeah. So I have basically what I've done is taken about 2.5, 3 leaves of kale, and I'm going to add a cup of pecans, a cup of walnuts, and a 1/4 of a cup of flaxseed. And I'm going to take also a cup of coconut flakes. So as I mentioned, coconut goes so well with kale. Nuts, I mean, who doesn't put dates, nuts, in a kale salad, right? Like that. These are the things you'd use anyway in a kale salad. So I'm just adding these all to the food processor and we'll get this ground up. I love this picture. This is like one of my favorite pictures because I feel like, it just is a reminder. Anytime I'm feeling disconnected from myself or from others, I just go sit outside. I think we all know that nature reconnects us. But I think that like pictures like this remind us that like, truly remind us that we're not alone.
Yeah.
And I think that that's actually, one of the key things to the heart chakra, right? One of the ways that we know we're out of alignment is this sense of lacking self-love and feeling disconnected to others, which is usually because we're disconnected to ourselves, right? So I think that, it's really important that we have these tools like just taking a walk outside and hugging a tree. Okay, so here is our recipe. So what you'll see in there is we're using ground flax because like what I was talking about with kale, so I have some whole flax seeds here. I'm sure you've seen whole flax seeds. Whole flax seeds have a really, really tough shell. If you don't grind flax seeds, they're going to pass through your digestive system. So you actually don't get any of the benefits of flax. I'm not going to open this because I can't get it open, but it will just it'll just be the outer coating. And what you want from flax seeds are all those vitamins and those good fatty acids that they have. This is what is going to be good for our heart health. So you can actually buy ground flaxseed meal. Places like Bob's Red Mill sells it. It's obviously best to grind your own flax. You'll get the most nutrition out of it. But, I use it so often that I like to keep a bag around. Make sure it's covered because the more exposure it has to light, the less that it's going to have the nutritional value that you want. So that's why Bob's Red Mill is a great company because they know and they keep it in a dark colored bag. All right, so I'm just going to grind this up. You want a sand-like texture. I'm going to let this go and not talk over it. I like the dance. I appreciate the grinding, like the movement dance. You could do a heart opener with this,
That's what I'm doing. I'm massaging my heart chakra.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like, this concept of being disconnected to oneself and one's heart is where we are right now in society. We've talked a lot about, the problems that we have within the world right now in terms of like our root chakra, our sacral, our solar plexus. They have been, they really have been showing where we're stuck. But all of it leads to this sense of unworthiness. Yeah. All of it leads to this concept that we are not lovable, right? And that we don't love each other, that we have to prove our ego correct. So this is a sand-like texture. One of my kale leaves didn't get ground, so I'm just taking some of this stuff out and put it back in. All right. But this is, I think, food processor issues.
Yes. You need to send that food processor some heart chakra love, Vanita.
There we go. But I think that, this is an important aspect of ourselves when we think about, the fact that what we're trying to do is connect at the heart chakra. So when we think about our lower chakras, this is kind of our relationship to the world. This is what, in a lot of the, the scriptures and the texts from which we have, our initial knowledge about chakras, it talks about the fact that this is like our karmic duties, the past, the imprints that we bring into this life, the imprints that we have from this life alone, right? Like from past lives, from current lives, but we are dealing with the world in our lower chakras. This is where we're connected to our ancestors, connected to our current family tribes, connected to our sexuality, our body, our sense of self. And when we move into the heart chakra, what we're trying to do is find that authentic voice. And one of the things that card was talking about is this idea of being true to yourself, right? Being able to express your authentic self. And that means speaking your spiritual truth, speaking your personal truth, and being able to be in duality and be okay with the fact that somebody else's truth doesn't match your own. And that is exactly where we are. Okay, I'm going to come back to this in a second. I just want to show you this. So as you can see, it's just kind of like a sand-like texture. It's just ground up. You can see the green really beautifully. The only reason I've taken this out is because now I want to grind the dates. And the dates are, I have soaked these dates overnight. Now, if you forget to soak the dates overnight, totally fine. Just take boiling water and soak them for at least 10 minutes. And you'll see, dates are pretty hard. I'm using medjool dates, and now these are pretty soft. So you want them to be, just enough squishiness, I guess. And remove the pits, because the pits will break any blade, even of a Vitamix. So I have about 10 dates here. But what the heart is really doing is it's connecting us. It is the gateway between the lower and the upper worlds, right? It's the center chakra of our 7 chakras. And so we're in the external world and our internal world in our lower chakras. This is our relationship, as I've been talking about, to the world and ourselves. And as we get into the higher chakras, this is the relationship we have to our spiritual selves, our higher selves, whatever word you want to use for it. And so when we connect at the heart, we're in this moment of alignment when we can accept duality, when we can accept the fact that there is no difference, that we're all one. So I'm going to grind this now. So it's just going to become a paste. So we're going to make this one with the nuts.
Anita.
Yes.
Can you show me that bowl with all the ground stuff again?
Yeah.
And
the lighting might be, let's see if I can get the better lighting
and
on.
And say again what's in there.
So what we have is, what we have is a cup of walnuts, a cup of pecans, a cup of coconut, shredded unsweetened coconut.
Okay.
And there's a fourth cup of flax seeds, and about 2 to 3 leaves of kale.
Okay.
So as you see, we don't have any sugar in there, and the sugar is going to come from the dates.
Great.
So now I'm adding this mixture back in, and I'm only going to start with half of the mixture, adding this back into the date so it can blend in, and then I'll keep adding more and more. And this, again, just deals with your own food processor, Vitamix, whatever you're using. Just go with what it needs.
Yeah.
And so, okay, now you just keep pushing it down. And it's going to make a nice sticky texture. This is essentially the same thing for anybody who watched what I did with the root chakra with the fudge balls. And it's dates and nuts. That's the key. The key to any dessert you need are dates and nuts, okay? That's it. And then everything else is extra. So I like to add things like coconut. I like to add, and in this case, we're adding kale. Flax is always great to add. You can add, mushroom, like we talked about, like adding some mushroom powder at one point, anything that you want. This is the great place to hide everything that you think that you need in your body, but maybe don't necessarily want to eat. Dates are, yeah, hide your food. I mean, I learned best from cooking for my daughter, right? Like, how do I get anything that I want in food that I should eat, but maybe don't have the conscious ability to put into everything? Just hide it.
Modern Witch Woman says, the key to a great night is dates and nuts.
Yes, exactly. And cacao. Cacao should always be somewhere. All right, so sometimes like some liquid is needed if you need a little bit of liquid. Sometimes what I do is use a little bit of the liquid from the date soaking, because that's sugar. It's basically sugar water. Yeah. But this food processor is pretty good that I don't need to do that. So we're gonna leave it there. So what I have here is just a baking tray that I've lined with parchment paper. And I'm just gonna use my hands, play with the food, and press it in. And just make an even texture, an even layer. You'll feel that the texture is kind of nutty. You're welcome to grind it down as much as you want. I like to keep it, so that it's soft and mushy. It's got a nice texture to it, but it's not too ground up that you can't tell what's in it. It doesn't look like brown mush. You get the nice bits of green flakes. So I'm going to press this in and then I'm going to show it to you. But I just want to get back to this concept of the higher self and this idea of expressing the truth, because I feel like that this is where we are right now. We're in this period of, duality. We're in this, we're seeing everything come out, whether it's Black Lives Matters, this idea of masks versus no masks. I mean, I feel like there's an argument about everything right now.
Yes.
People want to be on one side or the other.
Yes.
And that's okay. That's totally fine. It's important to identify what your truth is and speak your truth. And, have that. But what the Anahata chakra is actually representing is the word Anahata means unstruck. And it actually refers to the unstruck sound. It's the first vibration of the earth. This is the vibration of oneness. This is when there is no duality. It's an unstruck sound because sound comes from vibrating, right? Between 2 points at least. That, if a tree falls in the woods and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound, right? The vibration is there. The sound comes from our hearing, right? So when we're one with it, there is no sound to be made because it's all just vibrational energy. This means that there is no duality. So when we are cleared in this chakra, in this region, we're in that sense of peace where we can accept duality. And this is actually like, I think one of the most, we all know that this is like, what is the most important thing and where we're moving to as a society. But I think it's like an important constant reminder for me that like, I need to allow somebody else's truth to exist. I don't have to accept it. I don't have to accept it as mine. I don't have to believe in the fact that it's something that is, just or decent, but it is a version of reality that is out there. And if that version of reality didn't exist, then how can I know my version of reality? How do I know my truth? So it's about accepting our individual truth, about speaking with our authentic nature, but also allowing the other truth to exist without that sense of duality, in the sense that you don't have to look at it as confrontation. You can just look at it as that's your version of reality, and, just leave it at that. It's a hard place to be, don't you think?
Yeah. And I was thinking this morning and in my meditation about the heart chakra, and realizing that, as like a really little person, I think that was the first thing to like break down, was like, I had this super open heart. And then whatever happened, whatever life circumstances happened, it was like something happened. It was shocking. It was disturbing. It, it rocked my world, and my heart just went like this. Whoop.
Yep.
And then everything from my heart down kind of clamped up, and all of a sudden there was this contrasting, opposing reality of like, I'm not okay in the world. I now have to protect against this thing, right? And so to me, that reminds me of, I think, the way that polarity and the way that opposition occurs. It's like there was a oneness, something happened, and then it became about, how do I protect myself from this real or perceived harm? Yeah. And so much of like how I'm coming back into my own truth is like, it really is about coming into my heart. And then so much comes from that. Like, really, what is my truth? Like, what do I feel in my heart? And yeah, it's like doing all that lower chakra work is so necessary to be able to, it's like unpacking the layers, right, to get to the heart. So I feel like I really am with you when you're saying like, that's where we're at. I mean, I know that's where I'm at. I can't speak for others, but that's definitely where I'm at. I'm like doing a lot of crying, a lot of grieving, a lot of feeling.
So, that's what's the interesting aspect of this, right? We know that when the heart chakra is blocked, this is when we feel disconnected from ourselves and others and all these things. But when we're clearing it, that's when we feel the discomfort. That's when we cry. That's when we have, it's the clearance of that. And so it's really important. This is when we talk about like being able to sit with that discomfort, because it's remembering that this is what's actually opening it up. This is where we need to be.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can use peanut butter or something.
Yeah. So what I have here is I have almond butter.
Okay.
You're welcome to use peanut butter. I mean, everybody's all about the almond butter craze. So I just am, almond butter is ridiculously expensive these days.
My God.
Have you been noticing that?
Yeah. Well, I think it requires a lot of resources to cultivate.
It does. Almonds do require a lot more water than other nuts, and other nuts can be pricey because they, but you're welcome to use any kind of nut butter that you like. I just put, so let me just first show you here. I have, I just pressed in that date mixture, that date kale. You can see, I mean, it's solid in there, right? It's all sticky. Yeah. So that forms the base layer. And all I've done is I've taken the almond butter and I've stuck it into a bowl. You're welcome to use a hand mixer or a mixer. I'm going to use my arm strength, and I'm just going to mix this
up. Girl. Show me all that workout.
Yeah, right? Like that. The muscles. Yeah. But I agree with you that, for me, I have been dealing, as I mentioned to you earlier, that I feel like I've known my traumas and my blockages. Once I woke up and I started healing, I became aware of my traumas and blockages in the root and the sacral. And then, I've known about my digestive issues and the solar plexus forever. What this really, creating this recipe and really connecting with the heart chakra reminded me of is that I think my first and pure, well, I don't know if it's my first trauma, but it really in my heart. And I've mentioned this before in several episodes, and I think several of you know this, but a lot of the trauma in my background with the violence and things like that and sexuality, but it was really what I never realized was I was really scared to connect with myself and with others because I was scared everybody was going to die. And because I lost my brother and sister, at a young age. I was 12 and 15. My brother was 10 and my sister was 8. And, their deaths obviously was, something that did, rocked my world. But as I was going through and thinking about these things, I lost all my grandparents before the age of 20. I remember having a childhood friend who died. She wasn't a close friend of mine, but I went to a very small school and she died overnight of undiagnosed diabetes. And, a friend who, and diabetes runs in my family, and a friend who had a father who passed away at, overnight from asthma, and I had asthma. And so there was this fear of life that was there. And, this concept of what does, if I was connected to somebody or if somebody meant somebody to me, it meant that they could be lost. It meant that they could die, that they could go away. And by not being able to, rely on my parents for safety and comfort, and then to not have the people that were close to me and to watch people kind of, pass away in front of me, it was terrifying. And I then lost that connection with myself. And that was my lack of, connection with life, right? Connection with all life. And it's the wonderful thing that has been happening, and with my spiritual awakening when I was younger, and then, I lost that and then came back to it when I was older, was the fact that it's this understanding that death is not, that's not an end of life, right? Yeah. We're ending a physical form, and we're so much greater than that. I mean, I do remember, seeing my brother's body. I think that was the first, dead body that I saw, and understanding that was just a body, that was not the person. I mean, I didn't see him there at all. I didn't know who that was in that casket. It was not him. And I think that, again, looking at nature, we can begin to see how this always happens. You look at trees, they die every season. They give back to the earth. They come back up. And it's not something that is,
it's not an end. It's a continuum. Right? And so it's really just that, you had an under-supported experience, right? You had an imbalance of a certain kind of energy, and there wasn't enough to fill in the grid. There wasn't enough support for you to see that there is still beauty, there is still joy, there is still connection. So it kind of distorted your experience, is what I'm hearing.
100%. And it's been interesting to see that all it took was a reconnection with myself for me to find that reconnection to all others. And that connection to myself, I was very blessed, came through pregnancy, because there was an other in my body. There was a being. Right. Yes. There was an other, but it was me, and it was part of me. And I could not distinguish self versus non-self, right? That was all one. And I had to love myself to love her, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
It's incredible.
Okay. What? Okay.
So now here.
Yes. What are you doing now?
So right here, what I added was two teaspoons of spirulina. I actually have the tablespoon in there. I don't mind the kind of taste of spirulina, but like I recommend doing 2 teaspoons, especially if it's something that you're not used to. And now I'm going to add in a pinch of salt. I should have added the salt to the crust, but it really doesn't matter because all you want is a little bit of salt in there. It doesn't really matter where it goes. And we're going to add a pinch of salt and some maple syrup. Now, maple syrup is the other sweetener in this. And, you know, the reason I add in maple syrup is because, again, to hide that spirulina, because that is an interesting taste.
So I just want to say, like, that batch that you just mixed was just infused with so much deep magic. Like everything we were talking about, like life and death and birth and compassion, and just whoever is going to eat that is blessed.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, and I think this is like one of my favorite things about doing these episodes is that I get to share this food. And because I have to prep for these episodes and then like I'm making it and, you know, you get sick of things after a while. And I get to share all this food because I think that that is one of the most beautiful ways we can share love is that giving food to one another, giving food to each other. This is why we share meals. It's another thing that we've lost, right? We do all these things.
And it's also just like such a beautiful ritual to be together and share stories like while making food. Like to literally be infusing that energy into the food feels so ceremonial and sacred. And then to offer that and then have people ingest that, right? It's just I'm having a really deep witch moment right now.
Yeah, it's magic. I mean, this is the thing. We put our magic into everything that we do. It's just recognizing it, remembering that, not forgetting the fact that that happens because everything we touch, everything we say, everything we do is infused with us, our energy. And if we forget about it, it's still there, right? It's still there. People are still feeling it. So why not put it purposefully? Why not put it intentionally? Why not do it with heart?
It's so much about intention, right? It's 90% of spell casting is intention.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There was an interesting, I've got to find this fact. What was it? The human heart is 100 times stronger electrically and 5,000 times stronger magnetically than the brain. Wow. So if you think about that, right, this means that we are like, if the human heart is that much more electrically powered and magnetically powered, when we think of the concepts of manifestation, we think of like attracting like, we think of, you know, this idea of like positive flow of energy. We're thinking in terms of magnetism and electricity. This is why it's important to feel what you want to manifest. It's not just thinking about what you want to manifest. It's not about the words. It's not just about, you know, writing a spell. It's about feeling the spell because we feel with our heart, and that's where the power comes from. Right. And this is how we really manifest our magic. For anything that we want, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So here is basically, this is just mixed in. Let me see if I can get it there. Almond butter, spirulina, salt, and maple syrup. Nice and dark and green, rich like the earth. This kind of reminds me of like, I don't know. I think because it's algae, it's this blue-green algae. It's like, for some reason, it brings to mind like a primordial soup of life, you know?
Nice.
The soup. I'm in the soup.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like I've been reading some of the comments. It seems like a lot of people are going through emotions right now this week, and it is super charged. So we were really blessed. The last time we did this Food for the Chakras episode, we were coming on a weekend of an eclipse. And guess what? We're coming on a weekend of an eclipse again.
Oh, Danielle wants to know how much maple syrup.
Oh, I put in, let me see what I put in. I just followed my own recipe here, which was a cup of maple syrup.
Nice.
So 2 cups of almond butter, 1 cup of maple syrup, and I did 2 teaspoons of spirulina, and now I'm actually going to add in some vanilla. So like I mix things in one at a time just to make sure that it's fully mixed. You're welcome to do it together, but because I'm mixing by hand, it just takes a little bit more manpower. So
women power.
Women power. So I'm using a vanilla bean paste. I mentioned this before. You're welcome to use vanilla extract. The reason I like the paste is that it has more vanilla flavor. They actually have the vanilla beans in this. When you're using the extract, it's got that, it's a distilled from alcohol and things like that. And it just has a different flavor. So I like the paste. You're welcome to use the extract. Don't, it'll still give you that vanilla flavor. Vanilla is one of the ways that we trick our brains into thinking something is sweet. So like if you have your morning coffee, you have whatever, instead of adding sugar, add some vanilla and your brain will think that it's sweet. It's just a great way to kind of reduce the sugar in our diets. I think sugar is actually one of the biggest culprits that, for disease that we have. And we're totally unaware of it because sugar is in everything. And, it's even in the fruits and vegetables that we eat. And we should be getting it from our fruits and vegetables, but we really are addicted to the sweet end of the scale of things, right? Like we want smoothies full of lots of different fruits, and we want, we end up amping up the amount of fruit we eat, and it's better to eat that fruit than it is to eat something, with processed sugar. But we should, watch the amount that we're eating because it all adds up. It's amazing. I remember one point when I was working out and like I would want a smoothie afterwards, and like I would drink these giant smoothies and I was gaining weight, and it was all from fruit sugar. It was just purely fruit sugar. So, it's one of those things just to watch in our diet. So that's why I like using things like vanilla. The other thing is cinnamon. Cinnamon will trick your brain into thinking things are sweet. Okay, so this is all mixed in. I'm basically going to use my hands and layer it on top. So again, like it looks like a big clump right here, right now, and I'm just going to press it in.
Okay.
Yeah. We were talking about something that I wanted to comment on, and now I can't remember what that is, but that's okay because it'll come back because everything we're talking about is pretty magical.
Indeed. You're magical.
Aw, thank you. So are you, both of you. I think that, I've been, coming back to this concept of like duality in the heart and, this feeling of oneness, a lot of people are, including myself, are waking up to the fact that we're kind of entering into this period of, quantum states. We're moving out of what we have known as duality, and we're moving into what we see now as, quantum fields. And it used to be thought of as this, really heavy science, physics, whatever. And I used to just be like, whatever, I get basic premise of it, but I'm not thinking about it. But as we've been kind of coming into this time period now where we're forced to acknowledge that all of the expression of reality is an expression of the oneness, we all come from the same thing, then all of it is allowed to exist, right? And that's exactly what the quantum states are trying to, as we move into the quantum fields, that's what we are trying to learn, that all of it is allowed to exist and that we can have our own versions of reality. Now, this is what's strange, right? Like coming into this period where we can have our own versions of reality while having an idea of a shared reality. We are, think about something like money, right? Money, time. These are shared agreements. No, there's really, the hours in a day, the time that we need to spend on something, the amount of money something costs, the fact of currency alone, all of these are shared agreements. Nobody's actually said like, this is the way of the universe. This is just something we've collectively agreed to do.
Sort of. We sort of collectively agreed.
We sort of collectively agreed. I agree with you. But that sort of collectively agreed means that we bought into it.
Yes.
Another. Right?
It's a construct that we are kind of abiding by, whether you like it or not, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not something where I used the wrong bowl. So now I got to find another bowl. Hold on. We're getting to the most magical part, the chocolate.
Yay, chocolate.
Okay, let me tell you what we're doing with the chocolate. We'll come back to this discussion. So I am using semi-sweet chocolate here. I like to use dark chocolate or semi-sweet. I'm using this company called Enjoy Life. They don't have any like milk solids in there. They don't have anything else. You can use like a dark chocolate bar. What you want to do is make sure you're not using anything that's like milk chocolate, because milk chocolate is mostly sugar and milk, right? Milk solids. There's really very little of the benefits of cacao. What you want to do is either use pure cacao, which you could use, but I like to have the chocolate like crust to this. So I'm using semi-sweet morsels. Dark morsels are good. The only thing in this are cane sugar, unsweetened chocolate, and cocoa butter. So if you use dark chocolate, there's less there's less cane sugar in there. That's what it is. When you're melting chocolate, you want to make sure not to burn it. It burns so quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a double boiler. So double boilers, basically, I have a pot of water here.
I love double boilers.
Yes, exactly. There's very little water, and then you want a bowl that's bigger than the pot, so it sits on top. Neither touch. The water does not touch this. No water inside the bowl, because water will ruin the chocolate. It'll just cause it to go all funky. Right. And the other thing I suggest is not to use a wooden spoon when melting chocolate. I'm using a silicone one because wood absorbs flavors. And so basically you want it's chocolate. You want it as pure as possible. What do you do?
Yeah, thank you.
So I am sticking, I have about a half a bag. I made my daughter's birthday cake today and I have half a bag of chocolate left. So I'm just going to use the remainder of it. I like having a hard chocolate shell. If you want to have a softer chocolate, like you want it more ganache, then what you want to add in is some coconut cream. So this is like a can of coconut cream. I'm not going to do that because I actually like it to be a little tougher. I like that. I like the textural difference between the soft brownie and the hard chocolate. I like to bite into something.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to get a mitt. But, coming back to this concept of like the quantum states, this is when we realize that we can create our own realities, right? We can have these shared collective agreements. Like we don't have to live by one world and one way of being. I mean, we've done this by forming countries, right? We've done this by forming tribes. We've done this in so many ways of humanity that we can do this. We can move out of this period by coming through a new way of being that we can decide on. And this is why it's so important to have our tribe. This is why it's so important to connect with others. And when we move into our heart, when we move into our heart chakra, this is exactly what we're doing, is that we are finding our connection that is in tune with ourselves, in alignment with us. And when we have that,
yeah, I mean ourselves, and also just like what's happening right now on the planet, like these old played out paradigms. It's like, why are we continuing to abide by a construct that no longer applies to what's happening right now in this emerging moment? Like, we have to shift, right?
We have to. I mean, and think about it. All we've been is really just asleep before. It's not that we couldn't have done it. It's the fact that we kind of let it happen, right? To some degree, all of us have been collectively agreeing to things just because, that's just where we were. There's no judgment on it.
Well, we were like the lower, maybe like as a humanity, we were in like the lower chakras of survival and creation and safety and Traumaville,
Absolutely. And now we are in this period where we're recognizing that we are powerful creators. We're powerful manifestors. Yeah. And we can manifest the reality that we want, the world that we want. And what I think is what I'm starting to come to an understanding of is recognizing that we can create that reality and create that world, and not everybody has to be a part of it. I think that there's this desire to have everybody believe the same thing. And I think that that's the problem that we were in before. that we all were agreeing to a collective agreement, whether we agreed with it or not. Like we said, okay, we'll follow these rules where, you know, Black people are considered lesser and other people are not. And even though we didn't believe it in our heart, we kind of enforced the rules that allowed that to continue to proliferate in thoughts and actions and beliefs. And it's, you know, unfortunately, I would like to say that we would change everybody over within our lifetime, but I think we all know that that's probably not going to happen. Yeah. So it's about learning that there can be different states of existence. There can be different ways of believing, and finding ways to create your own community, your own behaviors, your own tribal societies, and find ways to create collective agreements that align with you.
Yeah. So, you know who's coming to mind for me? Are you familiar with Adrienne Marie Brown?
Oh, yes.
So she's just like such a leading edge, powerful being, speaking to, well, she has a book called Emergent Strategy. And she's just an incredible writer and advocate for social justice and the planet and love. I mean, she comes from just this really powerful emerging now, like, how do we get to love now? What does that look like? So she comes to mind in this conversation.
100%. I mean, she was definitely a leader.
Yeah. Check her out.
I'm just gonna, so this chocolate is melted now. You can see.
Woo!
It's nice and soft. And so I'm just gonna take this off the heat. And
having like a very strong reaction to that right now.
It's chocolate. Get all sexy.
Woo!
Chocolate. So we were talking about the heart opener, and I want to thank Jenny Biondo for getting me into doTERRA oils, because now I love cooking with them. I'm going to put 2 drops of peppermint. You can put 1, 2, 3 drops. 2 is pretty strong in this amount of chocolate. But again, you know, this is for the airways. This is for the breath. This is for opening up that heart. So,
well, we all know what happens, you know, when a fem's heart opens.
Yes, peppermint. One of the things she told me is like to beware not to get addicted to peppermint, and it is so easy because it just opens you up. It opens the airways up. So I am just pouring this on top, and I'm going to spread it evenly. Now, one of the things that I love to do is to make my own chocolates. So what I'll do is I'll take this, like, you know, this dark chocolate or the semi-sweet chocolate. I'll just take a piece of parchment, put it on a baking tray, and melt chocolate, put it on, you know, just spread it on the parchment itself. Stick whatever you want into it, whatever you like in chocolate. I like doing coconut flakes. I'll do like pumpkin seeds, salt crystals, like anything that nuts, almonds. I'll just let it, you know, all sit on that. And then I make a bark. I let it harden and then break it all up. And it's like the best chocolate. It's better than any chocolate you'll have. Use some oils if you want, you know, make it however you want. Sometimes I put cayenne in there. It's so good. And I keep that in the fridge. And I'll tell you, it is the best mood elevator. There's so many good chemicals in chocolate that, you know, people think about the caffeine, but it's really these 2 things, theobromine and something else, which is what we get activated from cacao ceremonies. So another quick trick to open up your heart with chocolate. Okay, so I just layer that on top. So I'm gonna stick this in the fridge so it hardens, so I have time to cut it afterwards. I'm gonna put some more coconut shreds on this
right now. Like literally, I'm drooling.
Yeah, I'm gonna put some coconut shreds. I'm also gonna put some salt crystals on top because I really love salt and sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, you can put more nuts, do whatever you like. I mean, this recipe, like I can eat a lot of it, and it's really good because there are good things in there.
Good thing it's healthy.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stick this in the fridge.
Okay.
All right.
Yay.
Give my hands a quick wash.
Good. Yay.
Yeah, Adrienne Marie Brown, I mean, she's definitely been, I think, one of the greatest thought leaders in this concept, the emergent strategies. And I've been really inspired by writers that have been using her philosophies to create new worlds. Um, there was somebody who started to think about like how we can operate in new ways of being, and sometimes it was in sci-fi, sometimes it was in, different ways of thinking. But I think that what I really got inspired, and I don't remember the names of these authors, but like what I was really inspired by with these different forms of writing, using this concept of, thinking differently about how we interact as individuals and as society, is being able to dream up new possibilities that we haven't thought of.
Yeah.
We're so limited by our experience and our beliefs and our conditioning that it is sometimes hard to think outside of that. I can tell you that's been one of my problems in manifestation, that sometimes I feel like what I'm trying to create or what I'm trying to do is bigger than anything that I already know. And because it's bigger than that, I don't know how to create this framework. We think sometimes about manifestation, thinking very specifically about the details so that you can feel into it. Lately, I've been doing the reverse, where I've been feeling into this sense of being comfortable with the unknown and like allowing something to come into me like kale in my dessert so that I don't question it, right? Where I'm allowing myself to open up to the possibility that what I want to do or what I want to manifest is not yet known or has not yet been done. And that's, I think, an important part of today and like today's society and, the heart chakra and this idea of connection is knowing yourself well enough to trust yourself, to trust these downloads from your higher self, from your spirit guides, from the universe, that you don't let the ego mind get in there and start saying like, well, is that really possible? Should I really do that? Is that really normal? Who cares? Right?
Well, and that you're so much more than the construct of, the social constructs. I mean, I think that is the heart of Afrofuturism and the work of Octavia Butler, which Adrienne Marie Brown references as so much as like a touchstone for her work, is like, especially if you're coming from an oppressed group, it's like you have to imagine, well, one, you come from the infinite. You are the infinite. You are God consciousness. You are the divine, period, regardless of what anybody tells you. And so you have to imagine another possibility where you get to be that, another reality where you are that.
Yes. Yes, it's so true. It's so true. And sometimes it's also and in relation to that, sometimes I find that putting past experiences into context with that in mind. So for example, there was somewhere along the 10, driving along the 10, somebody had a sign saying that if you believe in Jesus, you don't go to hell, or something along those lines, And I was immediately, thinking about, my Catholic school days and like all the Christianity that I was brought up with and this concept of Jesus and hell. And I realized that so this was my epiphany today. Hell is actually our lower chakras. It's when we're stuck in our lower chakras, right? This is that sense of disconnection of ego, of not knowing our tribe, not knowing our history, not knowing our ancestors, just being locked in ourselves and not connected. And when we are believing, and Jesus, Mary, Krishna, Kali, Isis, whoever you want to put in there, whoever is on your playlist, like this, when you have that connection, you are now being connected to your higher self. That's the heaven. Because if you are believing in the trueness of what they are sending as messages, then that is the connection with the higher self. That's the connection with the oneness. And that is why believing in Jesus will get you out of hell. It doesn't matter who you believe in, but it's getting you out of this lower chakra and raising you up into your upper chakras and bringing you into that connection with the highest self.
I love that reframe, Vanita.
Yeah. And this is where I'm saying, like, sometimes it's taking those old beliefs and putting it into a new structure.
Right.
Well, and understanding too, right, that it's not about going through some other hierarchy or some other being to find that connection, but that we each are part of that I am consciousness, that we are already there. And so we each access that on our own, like we have that power.
It's so true. All that power is within us, right? Like it keeps coming back down, like to that one phrase that we are God. We are expressions of that one infinite source. We individually have that power. And that's where we have that power to create and manifest. It's crazy though, how much is locked in our brains. Every time I sit and I think that I'm over whatever crap I am dealing with, every time I think I'm past it, I still have that reel inside my brain that's like, are you sure? Can you do that? Are you good enough? Are you able to?
I was just listening to a conversation, and one of the guests who couldn't reference where she had heard this. But what she said was really powerful. She said the last place for colonialism to leave is your brain.
Ooh.
Right? And I was like, oh yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. Right. That's why that whole decolonize movement is so important, right? I'm all about decolonizing your medicine, right? Food is the medicine. Decolonize all of those. And it's so true. It's all in our brain. It's all in our brain.
I'll be right back.
I mean, coming back to this concept of self-love and food as medicine, one of the things that I didn't mention earlier, that was what was sticking in my head, was one of the best ways to love ourselves is what we put into ourselves. We talk about it with, what we see and, listen to and who we interact with and conversations we have. But like, it's so important with ingredients, the more and more I really delve into this concept of food as medicine, I really do feel that power of food to heal us when we maintain our organs, when we maintain our health and vitality within the different parts of our body. We actually maintain our mental function. And when we maintain our mental function, we're in our best of health. And that's why, this stuff is expensive, right? Like it's unfortunate, but like access is a real big issue. A lot of people are locked out of being able to treat themselves with food as medicine and are forced to make decisions of diabetes medications that keep them alive versus diapers for their child. And it's a hard thing. And so for the people who have the ability, I say it's so important that you nourish yourself with food that is alive, with food that is nutrient dense, with food that really is going to heal you. Because when you are in your power, then you're able to lift others up, right? We rise together. And we have to do it in whatever ways we can. And so I encourage everybody. I know it's so hard when we're at the grocery store. We're tempted by 1,000 things that look really good, but really are not doing so much for us inside. And then we're also priced out by our budgets. But, it's been, I think, in the last 5 years or so, I've really made concerted efforts to spend more money on food and cut costs elsewhere. And I have been finding that, I have a lot of gastrointestinal issues. I've got pretty bad allergies and asthma, and I haven't needed anything except what I create in food to help me. Fire cider. I'm going to have my other shot of fire cider. I now drink this throughout the day. I think and if anybody, needs fire cider, I had a video that I created with my daughter on how to make your own fire cider. Please go make it, brew it, just, drink it as much as possible. But if you need some, I sell it. I have massive batches of fire cider.
You sell fire cider?
I sell fire cider. I will definitely figure out a way to send you some. But yeah, it's, one of the things that is really important that I do with fire cider is not only infuse it with magic and love and all these, important ingredients, but I use a lot of Indian spices. And in my video, I talk about some of those Indian spices. One of the ones that I'm using is called hing. It's asafoetida, and it, it smells really pungent, but it's really powerful. And it, when we're talking about the resurgence of COVID or whatever, and wherever you are in your beliefs of what's going on, that is one of the most potent spices. People are comparing COVID right now to the Spanish flu in 1918. And what's interesting is there was an astrologer who was talking about like planetary alignments. I don't know enough about astrology to be able to discuss this in depth, but it has to do with where Jupiter is and where Pluto is. It's about like Pluto, I guess, bringing up the muck and Jupiter kind of exacerbating it. And that's what is happening with COVID. And the last time this alignment happened was in 1918 during the Spanish flu. So it's really interesting to see these kind of like astrological alignments and happen. But asafoetida was actually one of the potent killers of that virus back in that time. Wow. And more recently with the swine flu, they found asafoetida to be really powerful. So I brew all of my fire cider with asafoetida. I also, put beets for circulation. And so I put a lot there. So if anybody needs fire cider, I brew it. Happy to reach out. But I also have a video because this is earth medicine. I don't believe in holding all this information in. We're here to share. You can make it yourself. And so it's so easy to make. And so if anybody wants a link to that video, happy to send it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I'm going to have my shot of fire cider.
Cheers. We're drinking wine. Yeah.
I actually was telling somebody who bought the fire cider for me. She's like, I want to mix alcohol with it. I'm like, do it. I mean, it's all about balance. Do what you need, I personally used to love to have my mixers for vodkas be like fresh squeezed vegetable juice, coconut water, gotta balance. There was something that I wanted to talk about that, it's actually the fire cider just activated my, my system. It's one of the things that I like. I feel like it wakes me up. When I drink it cold, it's really, I don't feel it as much. When I drink it warm, I can feel that heat. And where I feel that heat is first my lungs, and then it breathes, it opens up. And it's one of the beautiful things about the lungs is that this is where I think crying and emotion is so important that we release it. Like we've been taught to kind of hold back, our tears. I see my daughter doing this so much where she feels like this is not a situation she should cry in. And I'm like, let it out. Please let it out. We store grief in our lungs, right? And I've been noticing over this past 2 weeks that if I have a lot of emotion, I'm finding myself unable to breathe. And it's interesting that it's triggering that right now. I mean, this again is this period. We're talking about a disease that affects the lungs mostly. People on respirators, they can't breathe. We've really stuffed so much emotion in. So any way you can let it out, let it out.
Wow. I just feel like I can't breathe, like the fucking theme of the planet right now.
Yes, it's such a good point. It's been the theme.
Yeah.
I recommend, this is my personal belief. I'm curious to hear about yours. I see everybody walking around with, I can't breathe. And I think it's so important to, honor George Floyd and honor his words and remember them. But I do worry about this mantra that's being repeated over and over again by people. I can't breathe. And, we are manifestors of our words. And so, I think that it's one of the things that like I myself have chosen not to say, but I remember him and I honor him, and it doesn't take away, that is so potent. And the connection you just made right there, this concept of like not being able to breathe because of this disease that's coming out, the way he was murdered, and this concept of not breathing. But I think it's important that we come to this point that we are all able to breathe. And if we continue to repeat that mantra, then I wonder what that does to us. So just something to keep in mind. Yes, I love this comment from the modern witch movement. We need to change the mantra, I can't breathe, to I am breath. I am breath.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of potency to, like you said, holding different realities. I feel like there really is an important place for people to say, I can't breathe, or to bring focus to that reality. Like, to me, that feels important. And it's like the Amazon forest, it's like the lungs of the earth, it's like if we're slashing, burning.
Was that just the beginning of this year?
What's that?
Was that just the beginning of this year? The Amazon forest? Or no, that was Australia. I'm just thinking
I'm just saying, it's like, it's like the lungs of the earth. It's like Mama Earth is kind of like, I can't breathe, So I just feel like there are these like macro and micro levels where this is happening.
You just made an intense connection, because we did go from the Amazon fires to the Australian wildfires to COVID to George Floyd. I mean, it's all based on breath.
Globally, it's like, yes, we have access to breath, but it's like there's this awareness that like it's feeling hard to breathe.
It is feeling hard.
What is that signaling? And we have to pay attention to what that is signaling,
Yeah.
And yes, there's also a place for like reframing and using new language and reclaiming what the language is. But it's like we can't skip steps. We have to acknowledge that it's feeling hard to breathe on these different levels.
It's so true. I mean, it was a cry from Mother Earth first, who was the one who couldn't breathe. And then we're coming into this period of not being able to breathe. And then we're really truly seeing the people who have been suffering the most, the ones that have been silenced the most, who have been, truthfully the ones that, yeah, it's so true. And again, like we were been talking about this concept of the heart chakra and the airways. Prakriti is all about breath. It's all about Mother Nature. It's all about this life force. Prakriti is like the equivalent of chi, or any ways that we're looking at this concept of life force, and it's contained within this area. And if we do not breathe, we do not have that life force within us.
Yeah, I was born with a collapsed lung, and I feel like there was this inherent experience, or like one of my first experiences, my first trauma experience was like having that contrast, like you said, of like, okay, I can't breathe. And then kind of living into this need to like be able to breathe. And like, I have this kind of relentless desire to live.
Yes.
It's like every day I wake up and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this. But I think it's because I felt that I can't breathe experience as like one of my first life experiences. So I think I maybe hold this unique perspective because of how I came in.
And that's a beautiful example of dual awareness, of having both ends of the spectrum, where you can hold space and you can feel that sense of lack of breath and not being able to breathe, and the oppression and terror. And also the other side of that is,
yeah, I made it through.
Exactly. And opening up to what can come and what can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's such a beautiful thing. Like that, there was a choice in life. There was that struggle for life where you made a very conscious choice. Like, I am going to work through this. I'm going to heal this. I'm going to do what it takes, to breathe. And again, I think that is, that is that connection to spirit, in that sense of like, when we make that choice to breathe, when we take that breath, when we're making that desire to live, when we're afforded the the ability to do so. Not, in his case, he was not afforded that ability to do so. But when we make that choice, it is connecting us with our higher self, right? Like that is that, that connection to life. And I think that's, it's, I like what you said earlier about not skipping steps, that concept that is being said because it needs to be acknowledged. And that is something that we need to be aware of, while at the same time recognizing the power of words. So it's like holding that dual aspect in our head.
Completely.
Yeah. Yeah. Jenny was saying that the Breathe Essential Oil blend helps people take a deeper breath so that you can deal with grief and loss. And it was one of those things that when I was working with my somatic therapist and I was doing a lot of the inner child work, and I was finding that I couldn't breathe, we were going into my lungs, and I found my lungs like hard coal. Like one of the lungs was a hard coal, and it was kind of compressed and it felt flattened and smushed. And there was just so much grief being held in there. And, using these kind of essential oils and using, different breathing techniques allowed me to kind of like help inflate it. And I think it's interesting. You were talking about collapsed lung. It was the same, very different. It wasn't physical. This was all, energetic. And when I released that, the amount of emotion that came out of me, and sometimes it's acknowledging the fact that the grief is there. It took a lot to work through that grief. But acknowledging, using anything that you can open up to allow that through. Speaking of which, I'm going to go see if that's hardened so that we can cut through that.
Yeah. Aren't those birds lovely?
Yeah.
We've got the sweetest chorus of birds here outside the window.
Nice.
Yeah.
This would need a little more time to harden, but it's nice and gooey still. And I'm still going to cut this because let's just do it.
Do it. I'm going to breathe.
Breathe deeply. Breathe deeply. I am. So I want to show you this crystal that I had out. I don't know what it is, and maybe Ariel, you know it. I got it for my birthday.
Yeah. That looks like ruby in what is that?
I mean, it's so sparkly. I wish I had more light to show you. Like, you can kind of see the sparkles on it.
Yeah.
But I thought it was perfect for the heart chakra because it's got the red center, the green, powder.
But that's ruby. That red is ruby.
That's amazing stone.
I can't remember the green, what it's called. Yeah. Ruby. I'll show you. I've got one like that.
Yeah, it is so beautiful. And I was like, I cannot think of and it was, it was so appropriate to get it on my birthday because I felt like that's been, for me, like connecting with people has always been very hard. And lately I've been celebrating my birthday because I'm finally connected to myself and others. Yeah, that's it. That's gorgeous. Yeah. That is so beautiful. Well, one day when you remember the name, let me know.
I know. It's just past my bedtime, Yeah,
I
remember in the morning.
I get it. So you can see here, like I didn't refrigerate it for that long, but I was able to still cut it. So, you don't need that long. And I am going to dig this up. And I am like out of spatulas and everything because I made my daughter's birthday cake. She asked me to make an unhealthy cake because usually I make it out of black beans and like things like that. But you know what I did? I tricked her. I made it out of whole wheat flour. I used monk fruit sugar. There's no other sweeteners. Everything has been like coconut oil. It like she couldn't tell. Oh yeah, I only have a second.
Nice.
Look at this. I have a beautiful, she had no clue that this was completely healthy for you. You could eat as much as you want. And not
oh my gosh, you tricked her?
I tricked her. So you can see this beautiful.
Wow. Look at that.
That looks amazing.
Yeah. So again, another dessert that you can eat a lot. All we've sweetened it with is dates, which is, a whole food, maple syrup, which is, it's again good for the spirulina, but you can use other sweeteners, but I like maple syrup because it's got a lower glycemic index and it's better for your overall health. And other than that, it was vanilla. So we have nuts and, kale and spirulina and cacao. I mean, this is, a dessert that you do not feel guilty for. And actually, this looks better than my first try. Look at that.
Nice.
Wow.
Looks so good.
Yeah. So I encourage you all to make this because it is a really simple, and like you saw, all I needed was a food processor, the double boiler for the chocolate, but a really simple, amazing dessert.
Bravo.
All channeled from my guides and my higher self. So I thank them for the connection. I thank you for connection. I thank all of you who have been watching for this amazing connection. It's been wonderful to go through the chakras with all of you. I feel like this has been a clearing for all of us. And, I hope that, we can continue these discussions and get really real with where we are in life and, together manifest this new reality and do it through food, through conversation, through community, through love, connecting with our heart.
Thank you so much, Benita and Modern Witch Movement.
Yes.
And Mary. Special
Yes.
guest.
Thank you, Mary, for joining us. Thank you so much, Ariel. Thank you to the Modern Witch Movement. And next week, we're back for the next chakra with Delia and Jenny. And so we're going to be going through, now we're really getting into the fun stuff because we're getting into the throat. This is when, we're moving out of our muck and we're getting to express ourselves and getting into really our authentic voice. So I look forward to that conversation. Learning about the stones and the essential oils. Don't forget, this weekend is a powerful eclipse on July 4th. Actually, it's an interesting day to have this eclipse. A great manifestation. Let's create not only a new Earth, a new America. We can do it together. So set your intentions and have a magical weekend. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for joining.